Good night, everyone. Welcome to another Thursday. Yes, it is Thursday again. And of course, another episode of Track and Field Business. And of course, I'm still in the athlete's corner. And with me tonight is the outstanding Olympian, Dr. Neil Gardner. And of course, Dr. Gardner will be sharing his stories from as early as childhood with us, hopefully from as early as his childhood until his current status. So, without any more talking from me, Dr. Neil Gardner, welcome to Track and Field Business with HP Chat Track. Welcome.
Thank you, Heather. It's good to be here, and I've actually seen the interviews, and I'm very pleased. So It's my pleasure to be here.
I'm happy. I'm happy to hear that. I'm very, very happy to hear that. So now let us get a little bit into your life. Who was Neil Gardner as a little boy? Which parish you're from, where your roots hail from, and how did you started in track and field?
Sure. I was not from an athletic family, and I was not athletic growing up. I was just hyperactive. Um, I was born in Almontown in 1974, and I remember the times when I would have been the youngest in almost every room that I entered. And it seems as though the percentage is shifting every year that goes by. I'm finding there are fewer and fewer persons that are actually older than me in any room that I'm in. Um, I was never really involved in sports much. I didn't have any sports exposure as a child. I went to Vast Preparatory School, but I always was fascinated by sports. Um, I'm not even sure what my earliest memory. I think my earliest athletic memory or my earliest memory of track and field or any real sport at any significant level would have been the 1983 World Championships with Bertland Cameron when he pulled up in the 400 meters in the semi. No, not the in the 84 Olympics, sorry, when he pulled up in the semifinals of the Olympic Games and was still able to finish fourth and qualify for the finals, though he was not able to report for the finals.
Indeed, indeed.
That was my.
But before we get there, so
Oh.
while in primary school or prep school or high
Mhm.
school, there was no interest?
No, not that there was no interest, but I had no real athletic ability. I was always among the slower half of all the boys in my grade at almost every single grade level. During sports day, I would never win any races. I would always finish last, second to last, or I think I tied for second to last once. That's probably the best time.
So tell me about high school because you went to a high school that was very prominent in track and field. Tell me about your journey in high school and the high school you went to.
Well, I, before I get to high school, because I kind of had to go there because in about grade 5, I started to be interested in track and field in prep school. Because Vastrep had a very strong um, track and field reputation, and so I wanted to be a part of that, but I wasn't able to make the team in my grade 5 year. But in my grade 6 year, I was the one of two athletes training for the 400 meters, and when it came around to championships for prep champs, the coach decided that he wasn't going to use me again, and so I ended up not even being able to represent my school. So I went to high school, but I went to Woolmer's very young. I entered Woolmer's at 10 years old, and I was always the smallest, always, I remembered when I ran for sports day, I ran 100 meters. I ran 15.4 seconds in first year class four, in class, in grade, in first form. And that was extremely slow. Girls don't even run 15 seconds to a one. So just kind of show you how, you know, unathletic I was. However, back then, field events were not a part of prep champs. They only had the running events. So there was nothing that I thought that I could really do well. But I always knew that I could jump. From I was a little baby boy, from I was a very small child, I could jump almost higher than everybody I knew. From I was probably as young as 8 or 7 years old, I could outjump almost anybody that I knew as a child. I mean, when I say a child, I mean even teenagers. So I knew I could jump. We used to run and jump over hoses, jump over gates, jump off roofs, jump from house to house, running and just jumping off one rooftop and landing on the next roof for the person next door. I used to live in Portmore at that time. And so the houses were not super far apart, but it's something that I used to. I don't know if my parents even know. I don't think my parents are listening tonight, so that's good. But I used to jump from one rooftop to the next rooftop. So jumping was something that I knew I could do. I don't know if you know who Bruce James is.
Oh yes, yes. Oh
Well,
yes, yeah.
when I entered Woolmer's, Bruce James was the head. He was a deputy head boy, but he was the house captain for my house. And I remembered going to him for every event and saying, Bruce, I can't let me do this, let me try the 100, let me try this, let me try that. And he got so frustrated because every event he put me in, I would finish dead last or close to the last position. But then they had high jump, and I said, well, Bruce, let me put me in the high jump, put me in the high jump. And he's like, no. And but they didn't have enough persons, so he said, all right, we need one more person, so go ahead. But I didn't have shorts on that day. So I ended up having to borrow the shorts of the person that I was jumping with, the other person that was representing my house. And as he would jump, then I would, he would come over to the classroom, we change shorts, and I'll go up, jump over the bar, and give him back the shorts. But how I was jumping over the bar was kind of interesting because I didn't know any technique, but the bar, I would just run and just almost hurdle over the bar, just jump and just, with my feet over the bar. And
And this was the high jump,
this
right?
was a high jump. And by the time we got down to the nitty gritty of the event, he was already out, and I found myself um, in a battle for first place with another athlete. So I didn't have to change shorts anymore. Um, and then, as it turns out, I won the event. And so Bruce was surprised, of course. And, that's how my athletics kind of began. In second form, they did not have high jump for sports day for whatever reason. So I did not get to jump again in my second year class four. But in my third year of Woolmer's, which would have been my first year in class three, I tried again for the high jump. But this time, the two boys, I finished third for sports day. And the two boys that beat me were boys who were training for the track team. And so, I was excited about it. I kept getting in trouble. I kept getting detentions. And I'm gonna name another name. This is not about name dropping, by the way.
No, that's
Um,
fine. That's fine. That's
so
okay.
there's a gentleman who was a teacher at my school. His name was Stephen Francis, and he saw me
One of
coming to
one
this
of the one of the best coaches in the world. One of the best
argument. Yes,
sprint
arguably,
coaches.
probably even the best, especially as
Yes.
it comes to women sprinting.
Yes,
But
indeed.
there's so many. His breadth is so amazing. So
Yes.
it's hard to really put another coach above him. But he remembered that I finished third at sports day, and I kept going to the staff room to serve a detention because I was always just getting into. I was a hyperactive child, so I kept getting into a lot of trouble.
So Doc, you were a troublemaker in school.
I was a busybody in school.
Oh, okay.
So that's the better answer. I did not give trouble in the sense of, you know, missing classes or not doing assignments or so on. It was just that I couldn't keep still. And so teacher would tell us to do work, and I'd be walking up and down the classroom or running up and down in the classroom or something. And so I get in trouble that way. I
So
was never
when did you make your first champs team?
that year. So in my first year class three in third form, 6 weeks before champs, that's when Frano asked me to try out for the team to try to see if I could at least keep out of trouble and see if I could make the team. So there was, at this time, it was exactly 6 weeks before champs. 6 weeks. And at sports day, I had jumped 4 feet 6 inches for sports, 4 feet 5 inches for sports day. Back then it was feet and inches. And by the time champs came around, I trained consistently. I didn't miss practice. I always turned up. But the guy who finished second in the sports day, he actually was not very committed to training, so he would miss a lot of training. So Frano decided to put me in instead of him. And so I went to champs as a second string jumper who jumped 4 feet 5 inches at the time. The guy who won sports day, he was out of the competition by the time the bar reached, I think, 5 feet 1 inch. And I was still in the competition. I ended up finishing third at champs, jumping 5'5" in my first year of class 3. I don't know what happened because it was as if I just grew wings. And I was always I'm still very short. Right now I'm 5'9", and well, the highest I've been is 5'9" and 3/4. So even then I was already small for my age group. And so it was interesting to see the short guy. I was at the time about, I don't even know if I was 5 feet tall yet, really, but I was jumping 5'5". So it was interesting to see somebody so short jumping so high.
It is very interesting that you said you were a busybody, because I've seen data where you competed in the high jump, the long jump, the sprint hurdles. Why those events? Tell me a little bit about choosing those events.
Because they're technical. So as you will remember me saying, I ran 15.4 seconds in the 100 meters in my first year, class 4. That's extremely slow, by the way. Prep
Mm-hmm.
school kids run 12 seconds or faster as boys. So I was not very fast. However, I had the uncanny ability to be able to imitate almost any movement I saw somebody physically do. So I would watch on TV. If I see somebody do something on TV, I could almost always imitate it. I could always, imitate dances. I could imitate, and back then it was, what do you call it? Beat Street. What is break dancing?
Break
So
dance,
that
yes.
was
In
what
the 80s, yeah. Break
that's what it was
dancing.
back then. But so the more technical the event is, the better I was able to compete against those who are faster than me or taller than me or stronger than me. So I would always gravitate to those events. So as it turns out, I could do the high jump, and I won the high jump I finished third in my first year. I won in my second year, my last year, class 3, and equaled the champs record. I went to Carifta Games that year and finished third. Oh, by the way, it's not common that a class 3 athlete would go to Carifta Games, because I
That's
was
true.
14 at the time,
Hmm.
and Carifta is under 17. So I would compete against 16-year-olds while I was 14,
Yes,
and I
you're
was able
right.
to finish third at
Mhm.
Carifta Games. Um, the following year was my first year in class 2. I finished second in my second year of class 2. I won and broke the record. In fact, in my second year of class 2, I broke 3 records at champs: the high jump, the long jump, and the 110 hurdles. The problem with doing so many events is that sometimes they clash, and
Yes.
that's what sometimes ended up happening to me.
So
But
how
the
were you able to maneuver that, the clashing of events?
um, well, fatigue is not something that I really considered as such. All I knew is that I had to know the rules for an event, and the rules indicate that you can pass your you can request to postpone your attempt to the end of that round. But once that round has finished, let's say the long jump, if I'm second up to jump, but I'm doing another event, I could actually request to be placed towards the end of that round. But once that round has finished, if the second round has finished, I can't go back and have my second round attempt.
You have
So
to move up.
I would have to move up as my third round
Okay.
attempt.
Okay.
So what I would do is just try to pay attention to where things are, and the coaches would help me to know where things are in the other event I'm supposed to be going to, and then I'd do as much as I can in one event, and then shift over, which oftentimes meant changing spikes as well because high jump has pretty unique spikes, and so I would have to change my spikes, go over to the long jump pit, do a jump, and then go back to the high jump pit, or go and change my spikes and go and hurdle. In my class 2 year, what I ended up doing, the 110 hurdles was during the time that I had the 110 hurdles semifinals was at the same time I had the high jump final. So to try to conserve on energy, I came in very, very late to start jumping. I started at 2 meters, which is when I started jumping, everybody was basically finished. So the height that I entered at was the height that everybody else failed at. So
Okay.
I jumped 2 meters on my first attempt. Then I on my second jump I put the bar to the record, which was 205, and I jumped that on my first attempt. And then I put the bar to 210, and I failed my first two attempts, very close, but I had to leave to go and do the hurdles. So I just stopped the event, going to leave to go and do the hurdles. Um, and then I ran the hurdles. I because I was tired from jumping, I decided I was just gonna just run an easy qualifier. But then when I ran the next morning, when I looked at the list, I saw my name. There was an asterisk beside my name. So I wasn't sure what it meant because I didn't see it beside anybody else's name. So I was wondering what was happening. When they introduced us for the finals of the 110 hurdles, they said, and in lane 4, Neil Gardner, who broke the record in the semifinals. I was like, what? I
Wow.
broke the record.
So I have Davian. Davian Clark is on the live right now, and Davian is saying the great Doctor Neil beat me up at champs in the 110-meter hurdles. So
David,
you're telling me that even though you were very tired, you were still able to defeat Davian.
no, well, it's not fair because Davian, that was not Davian's primary event. Don't listen
I
to
know,
Davian. Don't listen to Davian. Davian was a 400-meter runner
I
and he was
know,
a very
right?
fast sprinter.
I know.
So Davian just jumped in it to give his school points. Davian wasn't focused on the 110 hurdle. So if Davian wanted to, he probably would have killed me if he was training for it. So don't listen to Davian.
I know. Davian is a troublemaker.
Yeah, we both are. In fact, we were very, very close right throughout our athletic careers, both of us. And I remember when we went to Atlanta, the Olympics in Atlanta, we were the youngest on the team. You know, well, of course, Lindell Frater as well. But as far as those who competed, he and I were the youngest, and you know, he at that time he had won the NCAAs for the 400 meters in
Hmm.
Oregon, and I won in the hurdles for Michigan.
Oh, so
So
you guys did not meet in college?
not competitively, not
Mm.
competitively, because he was focused on the 400-meter flat at that time, and it was in college in my sophomore year, which would have been the year before the Olympics, that I started doing the four hurdles. Up until that time, I never did the four hurdles. I only
I
did
n-
one
I
time.
I I noticed that, and that's my next question. Throughout your junior career, you did the field events, you did the sprint hurdles. What influenced the switch from the sprint hurdles to the quarter hurdles?
Well, I didn't actually stop doing the sprint hurdles until after college. So I continued doing sprint hurdles, but I switched from the jumps. I stopped doing jumping because I kept having groin injuries. So I remembered in my sophomore year, I was I could not get to compete well because I had a on my takeoff leg, I kept getting a recurrent groin injury every time I tried to take off. It was extremely painful. And so I decided that I wanted to try something different. So I went to my coach and I asked the coach, can I try a different event? And he said, what event you'd like to try? I said, the four hurdles. And he's like, no, I'm not going to let you do that because you give us too many points doing the jumps. If you do the four hurdles, you'll only be able to give us points for the 4 hurdles, but you'll be too tired to do anything else. So he didn't want me to do it. I asked him, I said, okay, coach, let me at least train for it, and at least I can get stronger for the 110 hurdles. So he said, all right, I'm going to let you give it a try. So I trained for 1 week. I did a time trial with the other guys on my team. And the best guy that I had on my team was running 54 seconds in the 4 hurdles. Very slow.
Which is very slow right now.
Extremely slow.
Ex-
For a guy.
Mhm.
I hope they're not hearing this.
Yeah,
Anyhow,
that's very slow
but
because
it
even
is
the
very slow.
women, yeah, women are running
Women are running much
sub
faster, right?
50. Yeah.
So I did a time trial after in the first week. So I started on the Monday, and on Friday we had a time trial. And in the time trial, I ran 52.6 or something like that, right? In a time trial, and just learning the event. And I saw the coach running down the track towards me, and he's like, "All right, Neil. So when you want to do this event, you know?" Back then, the school record was only 50 point something, so I was only about 2 seconds off from the school record. And after doing that, it took me 10 races to break the school record, and I ran 49.8 that year. I qualified for NC's outdoors in the 4 hurdles, and up to that time, I wasn't even able to do that in the 110 hurdles or any other event. So, an event I just started doing, I was able to qualify for nationals, and I only went to the semifinals at nationals. The following year, I won nationals, and this is only after doing it for 2 seasons.
2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
What was the transition like for you from Jamaica going to university in a foreign country?
It was challenging for several reasons. But your mindset is what determines how you do for the most part. It's not even the situation that you're in, it's how you view the situation that you're in. Because when I went to college, I was 18 years old, and I decided that I was going to go to a school that did not have good weather, and a school that didn't have a lot of Jamaicans. And this is because I know myself. I'm extremely gregarious. I'm very social. And so what I knew I would do is if I were around other Jamaicans, I would end up just hanging out and just being distracted. If I went to a place with good climate, because I had an opportunity to also go to a school in California, um, which I decided against. I instead went to University of Michigan. And the question that I asked was, what's the weather like? And they said Michigan is extremely cold.
Very cold.
You have to be inside all the time, and but we have indoor facilities and so on. UCLA was very, very warm and nice most of the time. So I said, all right, Michigan it is.
Wow, wow. Academics and sport seem to be a very common combination, especially in this new age. I've seen where 3.24 GPA, 4.0 GPA. How did you manage to balance that with sport?
Well, I remember I said I was hyperactive, right? What I found is that while training and competing, I found out that it was enough work to get me tired enough that I'll be able to sit in class and listen. Before I did track and field, I was just too wired and too all over the place. So it turned out to be a blessing that I was actually able to compete at the levels that I was able to compete at, while being a student, because I think the one supported the other.
Mm.
And my mindset as an athlete too um, incorporated my strengths academically, because I was a science student. So I did biology, chemistry, physics. In fact, my best subjects were math and physics.
Wow.
And so I found that I was able to dissect events. I taught myself a lot of the events that I did. I had a coach, yes, but I did a lot of work on my own as well to try to develop my craft. So I'd get VCR tapes, I'd get books, and I'd sit down.
What
I
did you
remember.
get? What did you get?
So it's VHS tapes.
I know,
So
I know,
yes.
I know, I
So for my
know.
VCR, so my video cassette
The
recorder,
youngsters, the youngsters who will see
they
this
might not know what that
interview,
is.
no, they won't. They won't. They won't.
And this was it back in the time when you had to, you know, when you watch something, if you like something, you had to stop it, press rewind, because back then it wasn't, the newer model VCRs allowed you to rewind and search while rewinding, but at the time the search feature wasn't a thing yet. So I'd have to stop it, rewind. When I think I got to the right point, then I press play and see if it's the right spot. If not, I'd
I
rewind
know.
some more.
Trust me, I know that technology.
You say you do. I don't know. Looking at you, you don't look anywhere near old enough.
Believe me, I know the VHS, I know. But in your opinion, you've been there, you've done this. How important is the collegiate system and the experience to become a successful athlete at the highest level?
It really depends on what drives the athlete. The good thing about it now is that athletes have choice. We have a choice now. Back then, in my time, there was no choice. So if you could not qualify to get into a good collegiate program, you ended up going to a junior college somewhere. And if you're not fortunate to get enough to get into a good junior college and then transfer into a good Division 1 institution, you would be struggling in your career as an athlete, and not everybody was able to do that. I was blessed because I was a student first, and I remained a student. And even when I started running and competing and traveling, every weekend and so on, I had already developed very sound habits to prepare for school the following week. So that was never a problem for me because I was just in the habit of doing that. But there
So
are some people for whom it's not the reality.
it all starts with a mindset, the mindset that you have.
Yes, and if you talk to Greg Houghton, he will say the same thing. The mindset is the most important thing.
Yeah, I spoke to him. He said the same thing.
Yeah,
A
that's
matter
what
of
he
fact,
says, and it's
yeah.
very true. One hundred
Mhm.
percent true. Your mindset is the most important thing. And I mean, Greg is such an inspiration. I remembered when he was having his injury issues. And this was in the 1995 season when he did not make the World Championship team, even though he was our best quarter miler, sorry, at the time. He did not make the national team. I think he finished fourth at the trials or something like that. But he had injuries and different challenges that kind of messed up his preparation. And to see him flourish through that and develop, it was remarkable for me. He wasn't even the winner of our trials in 1996, because I think Davian won and Roxbert Martin I think finished second. I think Greg finished third, but did Greg even run? I don't even remember if Greg ran. I know he ran on the miraculous 4x4 where
Oh
he
yes,
fell,
that relay. Yep,
and as we say in Jamaica, kin pupalik, and got up and continued running without breaking a stride,
yep.
and still was able to give us that bronze medal. So
Oh yes,
it
indeed.
was that was almost Bert Cameron isk. It
Yes, yep.
was
I
just
totally
fantastic.
agree. I
So he's a
totally
great
agree.
friend of mine, both himself and Dave and several others, of course. One of the good things I love about track and field in particular is how close we all got to each other. Even if you're in the same event, we had such a camaraderie that to this very day continues. And that's something I'm so grateful about.
I've heard a lot of those stories, the friendships, the friendships that you guys form and become family, and Yeah, I've heard a lot of the stories. But competing for country, did you have an Olympic dream as a little boy or it just happened?
Um, so when I was in high school is when I realized that the possibility of going to the Olympics was realistic. That's when I started to harbor dreams of going to the Olympics. And in fact, in my send off, I had a little send off party when I was leaving to go to college. And one of the things that said at my send off party in 1993 was that my dream and my goal is to make it to the next Olympics, which
Wow.
would have been 96 Olympics, which I did make. But track and field was never what I envisioned my career to be. I just envisioned achieving certain milestones. And for somebody with the raw talent that I had in terms of speed and so on, sorry, I should say the raw talent I did not have, in terms of foot speed and so on, I think I did very well reaching where I got to. But these guys now who are running, I mean, Rashawn Clark especially, I don't even
Crazy.
feel like I'm an athlete when I'm seeing those guys. I remember when I came back home for the first time in 1998 after college. I don't know if you were gonna ask me about MVP. Were you gonna ask me about MVP?
Yes, but you can go ahead. You can throw it in because we're now in your pro career.
All right. So
Mhm.
after my 96 Olympic season, many asked me if I was going to go pro. I said no, I had one more year of college left. I'm going to do my last year of college and then see where I'm at and then decide to do that. Um, in my last year of college in 1997, I was running way better than I was the previous year in the when I ended up going to the Olympics. But at the NCAA championships, which was 2 weeks before our national championships in Jamaica, I picked up a flu bug, some kind of a bug. I don't know what it was, but I got very sick. And I got sick as I got to the trap meet NCAA. Back then it was at, I think it was, I don't remember exactly where it might have been Indianapolis that year. Um, I had a severe headache and backache and loss of appetite, loss of taste and smell. I knew I was in trouble.
If it was like in the last 2, 3 years, we would tell you that it's COVID.
Yeah, man. It probably was COVID. It was probably COVID 97. But yeah, so I got really sick, and the first in the heat of NCs, I ran 49.1. Pretty easy heat, but that was the same day that I started to experience symptoms. The finals would have been 2 days later, I think, and by that time I was a mess. So ended up finishing sixth, I think, at NC's. Um, though I was defending champion, I was looking forward to defending my title, which I was very disappointed about. And then when I got back home for trials, it was only 2 weeks later, and I still hadn't fully recovered, and I did not make the team for the World Championships. So I was devastated. Um, so that was kind of what ended up happening. I went to Europe. I had some agents. One particular agent was interested in me before NC's, but then after what happened at NC's, he lost interest.
Oh
And
wow.
somebody else decided to at least take me to Europe. So I went to Europe and I ran 3 races. I didn't run any particularly fast times, just 49 mids thereabouts. And after those 3 races, the agent just came to me and said, "Okay, you're going home tomorrow."
Oh
And
wow. So after you graduated college in 1997, where did training take you now?
so I was offered the opportunity, and this is gonna go into my Christian background as well. Now, I was offered the opportunity to um, train with Winthrop Graham, who was a part of the managing group that I ended up going to Europe with, and he was my,
Another outstanding athlete.
yes, and the
Mhm.
former national record holder in the
Record
400
holder,
meter
yes. He
hurdles.
just got white recently.
Just got erased recently, and that was
Yes.
one of the longest records on the books because that was from
Hmm.
1992 Olympics.
Yeah.
So tremendous athlete. So he said he offered for me to train with him in I think it was Houston, either Houston or Austin. I think it was Houston. Um, I was offered the opportunity to train with Samuel Matete, who I had met at the Olympics, and Samuel Matete was the 91 world champion or 93. I think it was 91 world champion, and he finished. He was a silver medalist at the 96 Olympics. So he offered me the opportunity to train with him in Arkansas, and I had the choice to train in to stay where I was in Michigan and train. So as a Christian, I decided to take all of this to the Lord in prayer. So as I was in my quiet time trying to reflect and pray about what my choices should be, I felt the prodding of the Holy Spirit. I'm saying, um, what about Jamaica? I was like, Jamaica? But there's nothing in Jamaica. There's no training in Jamaica.
No training clubs, no
No,
nothing.
no. I mean, you had intercollegiates, but those are for the college athletes. There's no real. The clubs and institution thing wasn't that big, and it certainly wasn't preparing many people for international competition. There were one or two athletes who were able to do international competitions from the club level, but not at any significant level. So I didn't
True.
think of that as a viable option. So I started to, dismiss it. And then I said, you know what, let me just write it down on my list of three, now four places to consider. So I started praying again and asking, all right, um, let's go. Should it be Arkansas? Should it be Arkansas? And then I felt as if, the voice, of heaven saying to me, you know what? Why would I ask you to put Jamaica on the list if Jamaica isn't the place to go? And I was like, whew, all right, all right, I'll be obedient. Jamaica it is. So I decided to come home to Jamaica, and this was in December 1997. So I graduated in December 97. That conversation took place also in December 97. And it took me 1 month to pack up my belongings, close out all I needed to close out, sell my car, sell everything, and get ready to move back home to Jamaica.
So what was the plan? Was there a plan?
Yeah, the plan was go home and train.
With train with who at that time?
I did not know. I did not know. But then I I think my previous coach from high school, Fitz Coleman, who is currently the coach for Hans Parchment, um, he made contact with me, and well, I made contact with somebody. I don't remember who it was. I told him that I was coming back home, and so I got a phone call from him and from Grace Jackson, who at the time was back home in Jamaica, and she and Laurie Foster indicated that they're going to start a program, a training group in Jamaica for international competition. So with Fitz as the coach. So I came back. I started working with Mr. Coleman, and we did this for about a year and a half before Frano, Mr. Coleman decided that Frano would probably be a better fit for me, and asked Frano if he'd be willing to coach me, and Frano said yes. And Frano at the time we hadn't yet even named MVP, but he was in the process of putting this club together. And so by this time, this was 1999, and by this time, Bridget Foster had now graduated from her school because she
And
was 1 year
return.
behind me in school, and she had come home. I was already home. She came home, and there was this one other athlete from formerly of Wolmer's who went to a junior college overseas. I don't remember which university that he went to afterwards. His name was Donovan Housen, and the three of us started training with Frano that year.
So
Bridget
you
started,
are so you are a MVP pioneer.
yeah, the three of us. Me, Bridget, and Donovan. In fact, it was Donovan who named the club MVP. He came up with the name Max. Well, he came up with the name MVP, and then we brainstormed and came up with maximizing velocity and power, or maximum velocity and power.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow, interesting. I've heard a lot of our athletes talk about their Olympic dream, but of course, before you get there, you have to navigate the national trials first. Tell me about your experience at the trials. I've heard that is one of the toughest event to to compete at. Tell me about your experience at our trials.
So, in all things, be grateful, right, and have
Yes,
gratitude.
sir.
That's
Yes,
that's
sir.
that's what kept me, because at the time, the two people that everybody were talking about were Dinsdale Morgan and Winthrop Graham, right? Though I won NCs, people weren't really thinking of me really as a major threat, even though I was at the time the fastest Jamaican that year. Um, so I got to trials. I won my heats, and I was in the lane right behind Winthrop Graham for the final. And I was, when the gun went, I felt myself very easy and effortless, just tracking with him as he was going over the hurdle. We were going over the hurdles almost simultaneously. When we got to the fifth hurdle was at the wrong height in my lane.
Oh, wow.
And as it turns out, it was the wrong height in somebody else's lane as well, but it was my lane. I know that for sure. And when I got to the hurdle, it was at so the hurdle height for the four hurdles is 36 inches, which is 3 feet. The height that the hurdle was placed at was the 39-inch height, which would have been the class 1 sprint hurdle height. Running a four hurdles event and coming up with a hurdle at that height is not, first of all, it's not expected, but it's not an easy thing to be able to navigate. But I had gratitude that it was in my lane and it wasn't in Winthrop's lane or Dinsdale's lane, because it would have impacted them more significantly than it did me,
Why is that?
because I was a sprint hurdler.
Okay.
So I already had the mechanics to be able to navigate the hurdle, but it threw me off a lot, but probably not as much as it would have thrown off some of the others, but it threw me off a lot. And I ended up stumbling coming off the hurdle and being considerably far now behind Winthrop and Dinsdale. And I felt like my dreams were dashed. So I was like, no, I can't give up. So I just tried to regain my composure and get back on stride, and got back on a stride pattern for the sixth hurdle, the seventh hurdle, and then the eighth hurdle. And what I saw is that they were just about 3 or 4 meters ahead of me. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go after them. And between the ninth hurdle and the 10th hurdles, because I'm the most efficient hurdler, not the fastest, but I'm an extremely efficient hurdler. So with each hurdle, I was just closing and closing, and I caught them at the 10th hurdle, but I clobbered the 10th hurdle.
Ooh.
And I started stumbling, and I was like, please don't fall, please don't fall, please don't fall, please don't fall. And I did everything in my will to be able to get back up, not fall, and try to finish in third place.
In the
And
top three.
in the top three, Dinsdale won, Winthrop got second, and I was third.
Ooh.
And
Wow.
by the skin of my teeth. But when I went back to the TVJ truck to ask them to show me a copy of the race, because I knew what happened. And when I saw the race, you could see because when you look at the hurdles track, you can see all the hurdles going across at the same height.
And you were a
But you
little
saw my
above.
hurdle higher.
Okay.
So it was clearly
So did
higher.
you report? Was that reported to the officials or
Well,
you made the team so you just ignored it?
that was the point I was going to make now, is that I was about to make an official. I did protest to the officials after the race, and told them that my hurdle was at the wrong height. But by the time that I was doing that, they were taking the hurdles off the track. So I didn't even get a chance to show them that it was at the wrong height because they had already removed the hurdles for the next event. But I told them, and if they had not selected me for the team, I was going to
Protest.
protest because I had video evidence. I had video evidence. But they selected me, so I was like, all's well that ends
That
well. So I was
ends
like,
well. No need to
I
no
just
need
work
to
with that.
protest. No need to
No
protest.
need to protest. I'm in the top three. I made the team. And as it turned out, I was the only one who made it out of the first round at the Olympics that year.
Wow.
So Winthrop was injured. Dinsdale had he had a slower heat, but he didn't execute the heat properly and and ended up being behind and out of the placings. I ran a very competitive heat. So that year, the qualifying standards were first two in each event,
And then the next on
and then the
time.
next two fastest times.
Yeah.
I finished fourth in my heat,
And you made the final?
the
That
semifinal.
okay.
But the time that I ran would have won all but one of the other heats. Only one person outside of the three that beat me of all the other heats ran faster than the time I ran. So
Impressive.
yeah, so I just happened to be in the fastest heat with the Olympic champion, and it was I made an error in that race. I think that cost me that I fixed for the semifinals, but that was quite something. I was the sixth fastest overall, the fifth fastest overall out of the heats, but I was the slowest qualifier. I was the last to qualify because I was the second of the two non-automatic qualifiers. Can you imagine two non? That
Wow.
was ridiculous.
Wow.
Anyhow,
That's impressive. And this is the part that I like. This is my favorite part of the interviews, telling the athletes about their achievements. I mean, you've competed for Jamaica at the highest level, the Olympic Games, the World Championship, Pan Am Junior Games, NCAAs, Carifta, you name it. You are a part of our rich legacy in track and field. Explain to me how, your feelings, just your feelings, being a part of this great legacy of track and field that Jamaica has.
I actually feel very humbled every time I think about what I've been able to achieve athletically because remember my mindset was that I was not the most athletic person. I wasn't tall, I wasn't fast, a runner. In fact, I'm gonna tell you something that's kind of funny. I don't know if you know much about 400 and 400-meter times for an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
but the time that I ran in the Olympics, my 48.30 seconds was faster than the fastest time I had ever run in a 400 meters
Wow.
without hurdles.
Wow. So you're telling me you run faster in an obstacle race than the time that you run in a flat. Wow.
And that's the thing that it bewilders me to this day.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it is crazy because even the way I run is very different when the hurdles are there compared to when the hurdles are not there. The way I run, I'm way taller. My legs are I'm more powerful. My strides are more explosive, and I don't get tired as quickly. And I can't understand. I don't know how to explain to you why that is. But when the hurdles
And
are there, I'm a way better runner than when the hurdles are not there.
that's crazy. That is so. I keep hearing that, and I'm like, how do you run faster in the 400-meter hurdles than you would run in a flat four, as we call it? It's just crazy. But I guess when you're so good at your craft, you know, that is what
Well,
happens.
I think what ended up happening for me is that because I was a jumper for so many years, my leg strength was remarkable. And when you're running the 400, when at least when I'm running at 400 meters, I'm thinking of it more in terms of running like speed. But when I'm running the hurdles, I'm thinking of running it with explosiveness, because you have to make a certain stride pattern, and so you can't be rolling or loping along. You have to be exploding off each step to make sure that you're getting to hurdles where you need to be. And by doing that, and because my legs were so strong and I knew how to relax my upper body and let my legs do the work, I would still be able to complete. I mean, I'll give you a case in point. One of the drills or exercises that we would do for fitness or strength, when I was at MVP, Frana would have us do strength tests or different test weeks. We had a test week where we do different events. And one of those tests would have been bounding or standing long jump or standing shot put or burpees or whatever it is.
Okay, so instead of moving, you would stand where you are and
And
just
just
execute.
explode and see how far you get.
Okay.
So those are different aspects of tests that we would do to kind of get a sense of each area of strength and weakness that everybody has, and he put together a scoring sheet and score us all and so on. But whenever we would bound, and bounding is like, I don't know if you see people like doing a very powerful, explosive stride with the back leg straight behind them and the front knee
Mm-hmm.
up, and
Mm-hmm.
just doing that kind of a motion. When I did that, I could do a 300-meter bound, whereas everybody else would be tired at 150. And I could just continue bounding as if nothing. And
Interesting.
yes, and I realized, just thinking back about it, probably even just now coming to my realization, that that type of leg strength is something that I had considerably above most people who are even faster than me on a flat 400, because the hurdles required that kind of explosive leap, and that's where that didn't take much out of me to do, but it would take a lot out of many other people, so they'll get fatigued and I would not get as tired.
How were you able to manage injuries, fitness and injuries?
Well, in my first year of college, I had my first hamstring injury. My first year of college, I was so disappointed because I really wanted to make a good impact for my team, and especially in the hurdles. So I had a hamstring injury, and subsequent to that, I had groin injuries that kept plaguing me throughout, and ankle injuries. So I kept getting little, you know, twists and aches and so on as I went along because of the pounding of the events I did. I did triple jump, I did long jump. In college, I did not do high jump, but I did 110 hurdles as well before doing the 4 hurdles. So I had a lot of pounding on my legs. So I had those types of injuries to contend with. When I finished college and I was a professional athlete, I tore my hamstring the first year I came back to Jamaica, um, for the 97 trials. Sorry, it was 97. 98 was my first year back. It was 99 for the 99 season. That was my last season with Mr. Coleman before I switched over to MVP. I tore my hamstring that season about 2 months before trials, and I couldn't even compete at trials. I was so devastated.
Wow.
Um, so injuries, I've had my fair share of a lot of different types of injuries. I remember in for the Sydney Olympics, in the semifinals, I ran when I crossed the finish line in the semifinals at trials. I took 2 steps and fell to the ground. My knee was just in agony. I could not put any weight on my right foot, which is my takeoff leg. So I did not know what happened. I was good during the race, but as soon as I went through the line, my right knee just gave way, and I went around the back to try to get it, looked at. And I think this is part of the reason I do what I do now, is so that athletes would have an alternative to address these issues in real time so that they can get back on the track.
And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. But retirement, when did you know that it was time to walk away from the sport as it relates to competition, competing?
I I I retired twice.
Tell me about that.
So I went to the 2001 World Championships, and I in the World Championships I had gotten married in 2000. I was teaching at Wolmer's, and the teaching was taking a toll on me, on my legs, being able to recover and so on. So I was asked to focus exclusively on training and not teaching as well. So I left teaching the September of 2000, I think it was, to get ready for the following season, 2001. And so I was doing that. I missed my students. People kept saying, "Boy, why you leave? Why you leave?" So I mean, I'm a teacher at heart, so I really felt torn. Then when I went to the World Championships, I made a big mistake in the semifinal, and a guy in the semifinal, the guy from Britain, on the backstretch, ran up on me, and I thought I was going too slowly on the backstretch, and I instead of just running my race, I let that panic me, and I just took off and blew up royally.
Wow.
And so I mean, you don't make mistakes like that in a race, and it cost me. So I did not make the final, and I was so devastated. After the games, I just told coach, you know what, I was like, I'm not coming back.
I'm
I'm gonna
done
focus
with
on
this.
teaching. So that's my first time I left. So that was 2001, at the end of 2001 season. For 2002 athletic season, that's when Bridget Foster started to just blow up. I was like, and Bridget was like, Neil, you shouldn't have left. You shouldn't have left. And Bridget would send me like inspirational songs and so on that I'd listened to. One of her favorites, which became mine, was Yolanda Adams.
I
I can't
just
remember
can't
the
give up. I just
yeah,
can't give up now.
right, can't give up. And I listened to that, and I was like, you know what, I'm coming back. So in 2003 season, I decided to come back, and where I got to in 2003, I believe had I not left, I would have been in the World Championship final and probably would have even medaled. And I kind of feel bad about it. I actually had to go and apologize to Freno for leaving, because I felt like I could have been the first person to have given him a medal in a major championships in the 4 hurdles. And I felt like I robbed him of that opportunity. To date, I don't think he's had a male athlete do that.
No.
I don't think he's
Of
had
the
a
top
female athlete do that either. Well, Melaine
of the
did,
top of my head. Yeah, Melaine
but not a
gave
male
him.
athlete.
Yeah, not a male. Yeah, yeah. Looking back at your career, what would you have done? Is there anything you would have done differently? Your track and field career.
Many things. Um, this is purely athletic now, nothing else. Purely for my athletic career. I would have probably gone to Arkansas or Houston and trained with Sam Matete or Winthrop. I
Wow.
think I would have done considerably better
Mm. What is
athletically.
what is your most memorable moment competing for your high school, Wolmer's Boys?
My most memorable moment came at a time that I significantly underperformed, even though I still won the event. Um, well, two. I'll share the one that's less painful first. In my 1992 season for Champs 92, I had chicken pox 1 month exactly before Champs, 4 weeks exactly before Champs. And coming out of the chicken pox, I could not be in public. I could not train. I was locked up in my house for 2 weeks. because you had to stay in isolation until all the the pustules or whatever
Mm-hmm.
would break and they're gone. So for 2 weeks I was out of training the month before champs. When I got back to training, I remember not even being able to run a decent 300 meters, you know, training program. I was so weak, so slow. I couldn't get over the hurdles. I kept crashing into them because my legs were so weak. I went that year. Fernand had wanted me, or I had offered, because he didn't force me. I wanted to do it. Because back then they didn't have any restriction on number of events that you wanted to do.
Right.
So I wanted to actually try the heptathlon, and the reason I wanted to try the heptathlon is because people were saying, because I'm such a good multi-event athlete, maybe I could be good at the decathlon as a professional. So it was with that in mind that I considered the heptathlon. And in fact, I almost went to the Princeton University, University of Princeton, um, to work with their coach was a former decathlete, and I was trying to organize myself to possibly do the decathlon. But at champs, I did not do very well. I finished fifth in the long jump, fifth in the triple jump, which was because I was so weak and sick. But that year I did the high jump. I finished second. The long
The
jump,
long jump, the
triple jump,
hurdles. Oh,
110
you did
hurdles,
you did the triple. Oh my word.
triple jump, 110 hurdles, and the heptathlon.
You were busy.
I lived on the track, and this was a 3-day championship at the time. So I would arrive at the track day one in the morning, and I would stay on the track until evening. And I did that every day of the championships, from the beginning almost to the end. And it was rough. But my most memorable and painful memory is losing the 110 hurdles to Maurice Wignall,
Maurice
my last
Wignon.
year.
Wow.
So what happened that one was I was doing the high jump at the same time as the hurdles. I don't know why they did it that way. I suppose most high jumpers don't hurdle. So while doing the high jump, I had to stop jumping because the hurdles final was about to go. I had already won the semifinals with, I think, the fastest time by about half a second. That's how dominant I was at the time. I was about my time was 13.7, and it was hand time. I was so annoyed because I knew I wasn't gonna get the record because it was hand time.
Mm-hmm.
That year they didn't have the for whatever reason it wasn't working. So I knew I could not get the record. I was so upset. But I ran 13.7 in the heats. The record is 13.997, I think. 13.97 is the record, the official record, electronic time. And the second fastest runner ran 14.2 seconds. So I was a half a second faster than the second athlete. I was very dominant in high school, locally. So as it turns out, I had to leave the high jump to go and do the hurdles. So I'm watching the time, and I know the hurdles is supposed to start. Let's say it's supposed to start at 3:15. So I head down there at 5 minutes to 3 to start my preparation. When I got down there, they said they're ready to start now. This must be the only time in champs history. I doubt that's true, but this must have been the only time in champs history where they went ahead of schedule. And you can't really you should not be able to do that because
True.
people work on the schedule. But I left the high jump. I didn't get much time to recover because they started the event almost as soon as I got there. So I changed my spikes, set my blocks, and I didn't even get to go over the first hurdle. I just kind of just set my blocks and just, it went down there to see how it felt, and it felt okay. So I was like, okay, fine. Because they were telling me they need to go. So I was like, all right, fine, let's go. And that's partly because I knew two things. One, I'm not gonna get the record because it's
It's
hand
not
time. And
electronic
two,
time.
I don't really have anybody that's a competitor that I'm worried that would beat me even if I had a mistake. So I was like, all right, let's just go ahead, right? the first and only time this has ever happened to me in my entire career as a hurdler. I got out of the blocks, and I'm ascribing it to being fatigued. My wrong leg got to the first hurdle.
Your wrong leg.
My wrong leg got to the first hurdle.
Wow.
Now, if you know anything about hurdling,
So how did you correct that though?
I had to stop.
Wow.
I stopped at the first hurdle, switched my legs, and started running again. Um, at the second hurdle, I was in last place by about half a hurdle length between me and the person second to last. I was a half a hurdle length behind the person in last place, second to last place. So I started to try to just get my rhythm and build back my momentum. And by the time I got to hurdle 5, I was in full flight and full momentum. And I went from last place to second. Wignall beat me by out leaning me on the line, beating me by just 0.1.
But
Just
Doc, I've seen, I've heard that you cannot correct an error in the sprint hurdles. How were you were able to correct it and finish second?
it was
That's
something.
brilliant. That's
It was
brilliant.
yeah, it was something. But a lot of people lost a lot of money on that one.
Oh yes.
Yeah, because it was.
Must
I
have
mean, Calabar was happy because they got some valuable points
got
there.
the 9 points. Calabar
Yes,
got the nine
no, 7
points.
at the time.
Oh, it was
It
7
was
at the
7 at the
time.
time. Yeah. In fact, you know, I was the I had until I think Pullen. What's Pullen's first name?
Clive
Triple
Pullen.
jumper. Clive Pullen.
Clive Clive Pullen.
Until Clive Pullen, I had amassed the most points of any athlete at championships in their career.
Wow.
Yeah, but Clive surpassed that. He
Yeah,
was
because
phenomenal.
if you're doing triple, high, long sprint hurdles, that's a lot of
That's a lot
points.
of events. I mean, so
Yeah.
that year I finished ninth at champs. What I mean by that is, if you took my points only, I would have finished in the top 10.
Oh, I get you. I get you. I get you. I get you. Tell me quickly about your most memorable moment competing for Jamaica, and then we're going to get into Dr. Neil Gardner
Sure.
as the doctor.
All right. My most memorable moment was the Olympic final. Sorry, the Olympic semifinal.
Which of
Um,
them? 1996?
96 Olympics. So I was in lane 1, and because of the seeding, based on the fact that I was the last qualifier, even though I was the 5th fastest person, I was given lane 1. In lane 1, I was doing my first set of run throughs, and what ended up happening was, when I set my blocks and I ran over the first hurdle, they have those scoreboards on the infield, the ones that tell you the high jump. It was a high jump scoreboard, so it will tell you the height of the bar and so on, but it's a big electronic ones. One of that was right on the infield beside the hurdle, and I could not see the hurdle until I was about 2 steps from the hurdle because it was blocking my view all the way around.
So you
And
didn't you didn't protest.
the second one was the second hurdle. They had another scoreboard. I think it was for the discus that did the exact same thing. So I tried to get the attention of one of the referees and pointed out to him that I can't see the hurdle. The scoreboard is in the way. This man proper ignored me. Proper ignored me. Proper ignored me.
Wow.
So I was like, you know what? This is the card I'm dealt. I'm gonna play my hand. So the gun went, and I ran out. I kind of, because you have to know your stride length anyhow. So I just had to rely on what I knew my stride length to be, but I was a little off because I couldn't use a hurdle to gauge. And I stumbled a little bit after the first hurdle. Same thing, stumbled a little bit after the second hurdle, but I didn't panic, and I just stayed measured. And the mistake I made in the heats was that I went one hurdle too early. I kicked one hurdle too early. So I was like, I'm supposed to kick after hurdle 7, but I kicked going into hurdle 7 in the heats, and I was too tired to finish strong. That's why they passed me. I was actually leading after the last hurdle, where I finished fourth in the heats. So I decided to just be patient, be patient, be patient. And coming off the 7th hurdle, going into the hurdle number 8, that's when I just kicked, and I kicked hard. I was way behind a pack of about 5 athletes. It seemed like about 5 or 4 athletes that all looked like they were in line. And they were about 5 meters ahead of me. And I just started closing. I went over the 8th hurdle, closed a bit. The 9th hurdle, closed a bit. When I went over the 10th hurdle, I was even with them. And I had the most momentum because I was coming from behind. So I knew I was going to run past them to the finish line. I'm legally blind in my right eye. I don't know if you know this.
No, I did not.
That's something we can talk about too. I'm legally blind in my right eye from an accident that I had when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
And being in lane 1, everybody's on my right side. So when I got over the last hurdle, you can't really look around as much. I don't know how Hansel does it. But going into the finish line, I felt like I had passed the group. And when I dipped for the line and turned my head to see where I was, I saw a straight line of 4 of us. Just all of us dead heat.
Wow.
When the times came back, the winner was clear. The winner, I think, ran 47.90 something, I think. Second place, 48.28. Third place, 48.28. Fourth place, 48.28. Fifth place, I got fifth place, 48.30. 200ths of a second outside of second place. Every replay that I looked at, the worst that I saw myself at was third. Because
when you look at the
all the
torso,
replays, and I was in lane 1, so it's you're at a disadvantage because the camera is on the outside. But every replay I saw, I swore that I thought I was second or third. I could not see myself being anything less. I was pretty sure I was second or third. The time came back and they said I was fifth. And they gave me a 200th of a second time, which in my mind was crazy because it was so tight that I couldn't see.
All on the line.
We're all on the line together. Anyhow, the next event on the track. So I went over and asked our team officials to protest.
Right, yes. I was going to ask you about that. What about our people who would have traveled with the team? Nobody protest?
No. There's a good reason. Because the very next event on the track was the women's 400-meter hurdles final.
That Dion Hemmings won.
The first gold medal for Jamaica. And all of our officials were celebrating. And nobody remembered me.
You know, I'm glad you said that. I've heard that before, and I'm going to repeat what I've heard. I've heard that officials that travels with the team, when you need them to protest, nobody is available. So it's not the first I'm hearing it. I've heard it before.
That's not what I'm saying.
But what
that might be true, but I mean, even I was celebrating, you have to understand, this is a big deal,
No, but it was also a big deal for you to get into that final.
So here's what's interesting. So I finished fifth in my semifinal. The only person in the first semifinal that ran faster than me is the person that won. The top 4 makes it to the final. I finished fifth. It just so happens that 4 of the 5 people at the Olympic Games that ran faster than me were in my semifinal.
Wow.
And it was a four-way photo finish. And I was in lane one. So
But I've heard it
it was sad.
before. I've heard it before. You need the
I
people
am
to.
not throwing our officials under the bus.
No, I know, but other people have their experience where,
Yeah.
they wanted somebody to protest an action against them or the team. And when they were trying to find the powers that be, nobody was available. People
Yeah,
were
I don't know. I don't know
celebrating
why. Yeah,
for
that
doing stuff,
I don't know
but
why that was the case because I honestly felt that it was worthy of a protest because I stood the chance of being in a final. You have a Jamaican who has a chance of being in
to
the
get in a
final,
final, yes, that's
and
a part of the legacy.
especially somebody who is that young because I was the youngest in the semifinal. I was the youngest athlete to qualify for the semifinal that year.
Hold on for me, Dr. Neil. Davian is saying protest costs money. Yes,
Yes, and
Davian, we
it
know that
wasn't only a
protest
hundred
costs
dollars.
money.
Yeah,
I think it
it's
was
a
like
hundred dollars. It
I
was
think
a
it was
hundred
a
dollars.
hundred US. I
Yeah,
don't know how much it
and
is
I
now, but
thought that's if you don't win. If you don't win, if you win the protest, you get back your money. But I thought even if we lost, it was worth $100.
of course,
I think it
because
was
it
worth one
is.
hundred dollars,
It would, because you would have been ranked among the top 8 in the world. A
and
lot of
that would have changed my career
It
completely.
would, because it would have changed your earning power because
Yes,
you're
I'm
now
an
in the
Olympic finalist,
final. Right. So if
and
we
not
if
just
we
that.
know.
Remember, I was in lane one, and I was the sixth fastest time. The other two guys were way slower than me, way slower. So I knew I couldn't have finished worse than sixth in the finals. And
I am
if
going
I
to go
had a
back.
different lane,
I'm going to try and find that race. 1996.
if you can find it, let me see it because I have not seen it still. I have not
Yeah,
seen it
if
yet.
you've not seen it, I'm going to try and look for it. 1996 Olympic
It was
semifinal.
semifinal number two.
Semifinal number 2. Semifinal 2, men's 400-meter
I think
hurdle.
Calvin Davis won that semifinal.
Davian on the live, please find that race for me, please, and send it to me. Yes, so
I've been looking because I wanted to be able to see if I
mhm,
finished fifth as they
fifth,
indicated.
and so far apart in time, because that would have been
It would have been obvious.
a
And
little away.
yeah, I was shocked. I was shocked. I was disappointed. And I went when I got to the call room, not to the call room, to the when you get back to the I don't remember
To the
the
camp.
mixed zone.
Oh, the
When I got back
mixer.
to the mixed zone, I was looking for our officials and I started to explain what was happening. And then Dion's race started. And then everybody was watching Dion's race. And then everybody started to run up and down and celebrate and run back outside to Dion.
Because there is a window, when you're going to protest.
Yeah,
I think there's a
I think you have a
window.
1 hour window.
Yeah, you have to protest within a certain time, or
Yeah.
else you
Forever hold your
don't have.
peace.
Yeah, but I'm so sorry about that, Dr. Neil. I'm so sorry, but
Oh,
you're
I'm
right.
okay.
Yeah.
It would have been nice. It
Yes,
would
it
have
would
been
have been
nice.
nice. It would have been
And
nice.
what was interesting though, in terms of statistics, is that the time I ran to not make the finals there would have made every other Olympic final in history.
Wow.
So I was for 8 years in the Guinness Book of World Record for the fastest athlete to have not made an
Make a
Olympic
fine.
final in the
Oh,
400-meter hurdle.
wow. Wow. Wow.
Until another
Uh,
Jamaican, a very good friend of mine, um, you know, Kemel Thompson, took
mm-hmm.
that record away from me. So I was so grateful.
Wow.
I think it was in Athens.
Athens, yeah, 2004.
And
Yeah.
I felt bad for him because I think back then they had 3 semifinals and it's top two and next two. And I think
Yeah.
he finished third in his semifinals or fourth in his semifinals. And he ran 48-26. And he just barely missed out. It was sad. But
Yeah.
I'm happy for him because he took it away from me.
Yeah.
So I am no longer that
That's
person.
the thing about records, after a while,
Yeah, man.
after a
I don't
while
like
they
being the
go.
fastest loser.
Yeah. And
I'd
that is
rather be the
why
slowest winner.
And
than the
that is why
fastest loser.
and that is why I believe that when you win the titles, nobody can take those away from you.
Exactly.
But your record,
Yeah,
your
what's in a
yeah,
record? I
yeah,
mean,
your
when I saw so Bigger, you interviewed Bigger just the other day,
yes.
and when I came back from college, it was his race that I saw, and he was just the most amazing athlete because his what was wrong with him? He could not. What could he not do? He could not start.
Yes, his
In
start
the
is not the best, yeah.
His start was horrible over the
Hmm.
hurdle. I think it was his start,
But he's very
and
quick.
but he was so fast. He just
Yes.
ran past everybody and just ran so far and broke the record. It was just the most mind blowing thing that I'd seen. So I mean, even if I had gotten the record, it wouldn't have lasted long anyhow.
Dwight Bigger Thomas would have removed it.
Yeah, man. Boy, he was the most. I've seen some impressive athletes in my career as a junior,
Yes.
but he was one. He stood out in my mind, and I was upset with him. And Bigger, I hope you're listening to the live. I was upset with you when you decided to go sprinting rather than to stick with hurdles
Listen, you are
because
not. I was mad at him. I was like, why do I doing the 100?
I
Stick to the
was
hurdles.
so upset.
I
And
was
he
too.
came back and he still was able to run must 13:19 or whatever.
Hmm,
He would
hmm,
have had the world record. He would have been an Olympic champion. I am certain of it.
Yeah, yeah. I was
Ah,
wondering the same thing too. If I could get a word in with him at that time, I would have said no, Dwight
don't do
Bigger,
it
no,
because
stick with the hurdles.
he even got more bulky, He would
Yes,
have stayed a little leaner. He would have been
yes,
so much
yeah,
faster.
yeah. His power is something. He's very powerful.
He's very powerful, very fast, and very flexible.
Yes, yeah, he is.
I
He is.
mean, he's
He's
just
technically sound.
wonderful
Technically
athlete
sound.
to watch.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah.
He's just so talented. But I
I
was so upset with you. Don't do that again.
Now I'm at a section, another section that I like, and this is a section where I give the athletes an opportunity to promote themselves, to promote whatever their brand is, whatever they're working on, whatever projects. And I know that you have a clinic or a practice, so I'm going to allow you to tell me a little bit about your practice.
Well, my practice, I'm a chiropractic neurologist. As it is, as far as my last checks were, I'm the only one in the English speaking Caribbean. I think there might be somebody who's another chiropractic neurologist in Puerto Rico, but certainly in the English speaking Caribbean, I'm the only one. Um, what that is a neurologist that doesn't use drugs or surgeries to treat their athletes, to treat their patients. My patients primarily are nice little old ladies who have different health challenges, and they're very wide and varied. The most common type of person that we see are persons with spinal complaints, back pain, neck pain, and so on. However, there's this one person I'm currently working with that had a cerebellar disorder. So her walk is very unsteady, and she has to hold on when she's walking, and she can't walk downstairs, or could not walk downstairs, and could not walk in the dark, and so on, because of her unsteadiness. And we've started working with her. I think she's had now 3 sessions, one, two, three, maybe 4. And she's already reporting that she was walking downstairs, and it's when she was on her way down, she realized that she was doing it so effortlessly. She's able to work late at night and walk back to her car without any challenges in the dark, walking with more confidence. Now she wants to have other people try to come to see if they can get the same kinds of results. So these are some of the things that we do treat from time to time.
What influenced this career path?
Okay, so I was offered a scholarship through the World Olympians Association for Olympians who were interested in studying chiropractic. Now, this was an initiative that started in 2004, and by the World Olympians Association, the WOA, and I was the first recipient of this scholarship. There are a few. There've been a few since then, but I was the first recipient, and I took up my scholarship in 2006. When I studied chiropractic or looked at chiropractic as a career to find out what it's about, it just turned out that every single course that I did in college of consequence qualified me to be able to just start the program fully without having to do any other prerequisites.
Wow.
In fact, in my junior year in college, I changed my major from biology to biochemistry. And that switch in my major meant that I had to do another level physics class and another level chemistry class, I think it was. And those classes are the ones that qualified me to do chiropractic. Because had I stayed biology, I wouldn't have needed those courses, and I would have had to do them later on to qualify.
Inter-
So
Interesting.
yeah, that's when I mean, at the time I prayed about it, and it was what I believe I was being instructed that I needed to do as far as studying and changing that major when I was in college. And it turned out to be the perfect thing because I qualified perfectly. Not only did I qualify as the first Olympic athlete to take up the scholarship, but I also finished valedictorian of my class.
Congrats. I mean, I know it's a way back, but
Thank you.
I'm still saying congrats.
No, well, thank you. I'm very pleased about it. Um, and the thing that made me do so well, I think, is because of how passionate I was. I mean, tiredness was not an option. Fatigue was not an option. Going out and partying wasn't an option. You know, I had a wife, I still have that wife, who at the time supported me fully, and she, made sure that I didn't have to think about anything much other than school. And if it wasn't for that kind of a sacrifice on her part, and we both traveled together, and for that sacrifice, that's what enabled me really to be able to achieve that. So I'm very grateful to her. We've been married now 23 years.
Congrats again, sir. Wow.
Thank you very
But
much.
before you go any further, we have a lot of people on the live, saying,
Sure.
congratulations. We have a few athletes there, an Olympian. I don't know if you know some of these names. Dorothy Scott Genius. She was before your time. She was actually in the 80s, a very girl, a very standout. She's saying congratulations on your achievements. Of course, Troublemaker Davian was there. We all know who Davian is. Davian is a big supporter of this show.
Yeah, man.
We have distant running, my good friend Alina, who is a middle and long distance coach in Jamaica, female coach in Jamaica. And we have Ruth Williams, who is another Olympian from the 70s coming into the 80s. There's Marlene
Wonderful.
Green, Sandy, a lot of people there, and
Which
a young
Sandy?
Sandy British, the same
Okay.
one. Yeah, she reached out to you
Right. Oh,
initially,
yes, yes,
right?
yes, yes,
Yes,
yes, yes,
yes,
yes.
yes.
When you said Sandy, I was wondering if it was Sandy Richards.
No, no, no. I actually did an interview with Sandy Richards before, also. So her interview is there. But someone on the live is asking, do you treat osteopenia? That's the name of it, osteopenia.
So,
Is that the correct
yes,
pronunciation?
that's 100% very well done.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yes, you deserve all the praise.
Yes,
But
someone is asking if you
yeah,
treat
well,
that.
no, osteopenia is not something necessarily that you treat with like therapies. However, it's something that you need to deal with nutritionally. One of the things that people have as a misconception is that they think calcium has anything to do with osteopenia, and it doesn't. So osteopenia, what osteopenia is for anyone who's listening, is it's the technical term to when you have a loss or decrease in your mineral density in your bones. Now, when that decrease gets to a certain threshold, that's when you call it osteoporosis.
How do you know when there's a decrease, though?
You see it on X-ray
Okay. Oh, you have to get
imaging.
medical.
So either you
Okay.
do an X-ray or you do a DEXA scan, a bone density scan, to tell you that you're osteopenic. It would be the description. But osteopenia is the broad term for any loss of mineral density beyond what is normal. But osteoporosis is when that loss has gone below a certain threshold.
Okay. Someone is saying Sandy British is telling us that we can listen to your program on RGR on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m.
Yes,
Tell
so
me a little bit about that show.
so we have a show. It's called Back to Health Talk Show, and
Okay.
my wife and I we both co-host that show. It's on RGR 94 FM, however, or Radio Jamaica 94 FM. However, we also stream it live on Facebook. So right now I don't put it over on any other channels, any other platforms
It's
yet,
not
but we
it's not
stream
on
it live.
YouTube.
Not yet, not yet.
Okay. Okay.
People are asking me to do it, and all I
Okay.
have to
You
do is
should.
just
You should.
flip
You
it
should.
over.
You should. Sharon Bailey is also saying, congratulations,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Gardner. Yeah. A lot of big ups from the live there. But my next question on
Sure.
your practice, how does athletes or how can athletes benefit from what you do?
They benefit from who I am probably more than just what I do.
That's
Um,
good.
well, I'll explain. It's still what I do, right? But because remember I told you about my injury
Yes.
in the Sydney trials, the Olympic trials for the Sydney Olympic Games. Because of that, when I was doing my chiropractic training, I would be on the lookout for anything that could help me learn how to treat athletic injuries in the shortest possible time. So I've had the blessings, and I will not call any names, obviously, but there are many Olympians that I've worked with, both males and females, on our national team and for other countries that I've treated for various things, including injuries. Some of them it would be for high school level championship, boys and girls champs, or for collegiate levels, or for international level. And in treating them, there are many of them that they may have had an injury in training and then they come, or they've been to several places, some overseas, and it's not until somebody tells them that, why don't check out this place. And I've had a few of them, and athletes are selfish, because I remember treating an athlete when I was in my practice in the US before I came back home. And I had a kid that I was treating. His challenge was that his balance was off. He was a football player. His balance was off, and he had difficulties catching the ball. So that's what I was treating him for. So I was using my neurology understanding to try to improve his hand-eye coordination, which worked tremendously well. I mean, he was saying that he was catching balls with one hand, and it was crazy. Anyhow, I asked him, so why don't I see any of your teammates coming? His answer to me is that I am his secret weapon.
Oh wow.
I was
He's
like,
keeping
that doesn't work for me. What
that's
do you
not
mean I'm
good.
your secret weapon?
That's not good business for you.
That's not good. And so athletes are not telling enough other people, especially people in their events. But some of the coaches, there are some coaches who almost exclusively we work with their athletes, especially as it comes closer to champs, or some of the coaches that are now professional coaches that are sending their athletes to me when they have certain, especially when it comes to spinal issues. I'll give you one point on this issue of spinal issues. On my own estimates, and this is based on assessing all the athletes that I have treated, and there are probably a couple hundred athletes I've treated with a hamstring injury. Almost every single one of them, I would say about 90%, if not more, have a lower back injury that they had first that led to the
Oh,
hamstring injury.
wow.
Almost every single athlete with a hamstring injury, they have a low back injury that predated the hamstring injury.
So
Sometimes they
is it
didn't even
so is
realize
it
that they had a lower back injury
is it because the back injury wasn't treated?
because they're not getting it properly dealt with.
Okay.
And most of the persons who, I mean, you can do physiotherapy and so on, but if there's a spinal injury that's impacting the nerve that controls the hamstring muscle, that does not get addressed, and that's the one that goes in the very lowest part of the lower back. That area is what controls the hamstring muscle, hamstring, calf, Achilles, sole of the foot. So that's why you find a lot of people with plantar fasciitis, Achilles injuries, calf injuries, and hamstring injuries. Probably more so than you'll find persons with quadriceps injuries because the nerves that control the quadriceps are a little bit higher in the low back than the ones that control the hamstring. And bad lifting mechanics and so
Mm-hmm.
on will more readily injure those muscles or those areas of your spine, causing injuries like that. So when I see an athlete with a back injury, I will immediately warn the coach to kind of pull them back a little bit from the training,
Mm-hmm.
and let's deal with the back injury before it becomes a hamstring injury.
So an injury like that, how long does it take? I know it varies for different people, but on an average, how long before an injury like that is corrected or fixed?
For the back,
Yes.
depending on the severity, I've had athletes who are not able to walk unassisted coming into the office because of an injury to their spine during training,
Oh,
being able to leave the office walking on their own and back in training by the next day or day after.
ooh, wow. Explain a little bit for me about Achilles injuries. I keep hearing it. It's very busy around. What is it exactly?
So the Achilles tendon, I wonder if I could show you any pictures. If you
Sure,
had
you
told me
can.
before, if you had told me before, I would have tried to pull up something. Let me see if I can
No,
pull up.
that's fine. That's fine. But
But
just break it down a little bit
so the
if you
Achilles
can.
tendon is the tendon that the calf muscles converge into. There are gastrocnemius, soleus, plantaris. I think those are the main ones. So I think they are a popliteus muscle. So there are four muscles, as far as my memory tells me, that blend together in the back of behind the knee, from behind the knee down to your heel, that controls your ability to
To
plantar flex or
flex.
go on your toes.
Yeah.
That they blend together. The muscle belly is higher up, but the tendon for those muscles come down toward the heel and attach to the back of the heel. The group of tendons we call the Achilles tendon. So the Achilles tendon is not just the tendon for one muscle. It's a blending of all those muscles that come together. So it's a very strong tendon. Now that tendon, as strong as it is, with recurrent trauma through training, especially explosive training like what sprinters would do, it puts it at risk of injury or risk of inflammation or tearing, micro tears, or sometimes you can actually rupture it altogether and completely tear it, which has happened for some athletes, and they've had to have surgery to reconstruct or reattach the tendon to the bone or one end of the tendon to another end of the tendon.
Wow. How detriment is that to a sprinter's career? And I'm asking you because one of our star sprinters, she has been having this problem for a while now, and I keep hearing it, and sometimes she's off. So I just want to understand how detriment is this to her career, in terms of how long
Like
can it keep?
career
Yeah,
threatening injury, if it's a career
yeah.
threatening injury, if it's
Mhm.
not properly dealt with in the early stages, it can lead to chronic inflammation. But there are things that can be done to improve that situation. And I've worked with athletes with Achilles tendon injuries as well, and had pretty great results with them, to the point where some of them have gone on having had injuries like that and done very well in the Olympics and other international events.
Is it something that can be corrected?
Yes,
Um, okay, and
usually.
it is also something that can reoccurs.
Yes. If the issue that led to it breaking down in the first place is not removed or corrected, and that issue remains, even if you fix it today, it will break it back down later on.
So
So you
surgery
can't just
is
treat the Achilles. You have to find the source that led to it in the first place. And as I pointed out, that kinetic chain of muscles from the glutes, hamstrings, calves, Achilles, sole of the foot, that entire chain is governed primarily by one nerve root in the lower back, the S1 nerve root, which is the one that's most likely affected when somebody has a strain in their low back.
wow, interesting. Very, very interesting. So you've worked with a lot of athletes and high success rate and the whole works.
So I only use the fact that we get repeat customers to determine the success rate, because people like to tell them feel better.
True.
So you don't really know. So it's when you see them winning medals now, you say, well, maybe it helped.
Okay. Yes,
Maybe
yes.
it helped.
So
You know,
where are you located? How can people find your or do you
our
market? Do you
practice.
advertise your
I
practice?
try not to, because
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm too busy.
Okay, okay, I get you. I get. But
But
if you're the only
having
one
said that,
in
yeah, that's part of it. That's part
yeah,
of it. But the what I find is word of mouth actually works very well. But then my radio program as well gets me in front of a lot of people, so a lot of people know who I am from that, and then they know who I
right.
am from athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, I guess I have a good um I reside in a good place in the minds of many people. So when they think of me, they think of a positive thing instead of a negative thing, which
Good,
I'm
good,
grateful for.
good.
So I do have a lot of persons who do come to us because they heard us on the radio program, or they heard me on some interview. But the majority of people would be word of mouth. Somebody who came to me, I helped them, and then they spread the word to somebody else, either a family member or somebody else. Um, but what's interesting though, Heather, is that, and I don't say it in anger or malice or anything, right? I have never been selected to go with a Jamaican team to the World Championships or the Olympic Games or
Dr.
the
Neil,
Commonwealth Games for
Dr.
that matter.
Neil, Dr.
Yeah,
Neil,
yeah.
this is a very sensitive topic for me and I will go off. So please do not draw me out
Well,
because
it's like I said, it's not with
and I
malice that
say
I
that
say
in
it.
a joke. I say that in a joke because I constantly say the same thing. Why is it that we have retired athletes who are doing so well in different areas, yet they are not a part of our set
Program.
program and they are not a part of our team going to major championship? But before we go there, do you know the name Daniel England?
Of course, I know the name Daniel England.
Okay,
Who
okay.
doesn't know the name
Who
Daniel
doesn't
England
know the
from the
name
80s?
Daniel England? Well, Daniel is asking, and I've never really noticed this, but he's asking why most hamstring injuries is on the left leg. Have you ever
Because of the
observed?
curve.
Repeat that.
Because of the curve.
Because of the curve.
Yes. The direction of turn on the track that we race on is a left-handed turn. So the
Oh.
left leg is on the inner curve, which works considerably harder when you're going around the track than the outer leg.
So what about when you're running on the street?
You still train on a track that's on a turn.
Oh, you got that, Daniel? He's saying it's because of the curve.
Yeah. I'm if he can hear you, he can hear me, I'm assuming.
Yes, he can hear. Yes. Yes, yes, he can. Yes. Wow.
So yeah, so what happens is this. Um, Especially when you're racing on a track, you're running on a straightaway, and then you turn to the left and you go around the track, the forces that are applying. Remember, you're leaning on the left side, so you have more of your weight is on the left leg. I think your camera is reversed,
Oh yes, yes, you're right. You're right. You're
or
right.
or it is that you don't know your
No,
left from your
no,
right.
you are right. You are right because I'm trying to figure. I'm looking at the track at the stadium and I'm going around it. And you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
So you're running, you go left into the turn, and
Yeah.
you're leaning to the left.
Yeah.
So you have, in terms of weight distribution, you probably have um 70% or 60% of your weight on the inner leg, depending on how which lane you're in and how aggressively you're turning, and 30% or 40% on the outer leg. And it can be even a greater difference, especially when you're running on an indoor track that's not banked.
Yeah.
So the amount of force generated on the inner leg, the left leg, is considerably greater. So you find that a lot of athletes, when they tear a hamstring, it's the inner one that gets torn.
Very interesting. I just learned something tonight. Very, very interesting. Thanks for that question, Daniel.
And big up
Dan
Daniel, one of
Daniel,
the
big up
early
yourself.
pioneers,
Yes, indeed.
motivational speaker,
Yes,
motivational person. Good youth,
yes.
that man.
Yeah, man, Daniela Goodyear, big supporter of my program.
Yeah, man.
Also, he's also asking, what percentage do you recommend going back to practice from a hamstring injury? Like,
If there is a hamstring injury and we deal with only the hamstring, rehabilitation of the hamstring, it's going to get re-injured if you don't fix the back issue as well. Remember, I said that the majority of people with hamstring injuries have a back issue as well that predates it. So I would recommend that you see a chiropractor and make sure that your spine is in good shape. You can have a hamstring injury from something else. Let's say you're running and you step in a rut on the track and strain a muscle. That's possible. But some of the times, the majority of the times, it is from the spine and the nerve control that's leading to the injury of the muscle. So we have to address the upstream issue, the top issue, which is the spinal issue, as well as the downstream issue, which is the effect, which is the hamstring getting hurt. Sometimes I've had athletes that have had a hamstring pain or spasms in the hamstring. And I've done this actually at champs when the muscle is not actually injured, but is in spasm because of the irritation of the nerve, and work on the athlete before their event, and they go on and run their event without the pain. And we've done
wow,
this. We've
wow.
done this often enough.
Would you suggest, because of what you just said about the curve and the left leg being injured, would you suggest that athletes now
Run in the
train
other
from
direction.
both sides of the track, both direction of the track to kind of balance? Does that make
Well,
sense? Is there any logic
yeah.
in that?
Well, the problem with that is that running the opposite direction is a completely different sequence of muscle firing, which increases your likelihood of being injured while running in the wrong direction, in the opposite direction. You're actually at a greater likelihood of injuring yourself running in the opposite direction if you have not developed that over years. But some coaches have made it a part of the athlete's normal development from they were young. And in that case, it is brilliant. It's a good idea to do that. So you have them run. Today they're running the normal direction. One day out of the week, you might have them switch it up and do their program in the other direction. It makes it a nice, creative change of pace, change of mentality, change of challenges that the person has to overcome that now allows them to add a new skill to their tool belt. But running fast to the right does not mean that you will run faster to the left.
I've seen it a lot in the 100 meter where I've seen it here in the US where they have have you running from, especially when it's windy, they kind of change the direction that you run. But I guess that's easy when you're running a straight race as
Right.
opposed to if you're going around the track.
Yeah. So the way America kind of does things is very interesting, and it makes sense in the sense that if you can qualify for regionals or for nationals, irrespective of the win time, then you want to make sure that you give the athletes the best chance to be running either with no wind or with a following wind as much as possible. Why would you have an athlete run into a headwind where they will run slower, and at the same time, if they ran with a tailwind, they are not penalized. They can still qualify, albeit provisionally, but they can still qualify for regionals or nationals. And so this is always going to be the case, especially in the national collegiate programs. As long as wind doesn't matter, then why not have them run with a following wind? And when you're
Mhm.
running in a straight line, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever if you're running with a following wind, because the track is supposed to be level, and the only difference is the scenery.
Interesting, interesting. Going back to something that you said earlier, that you have never been a part of national duties.
Well, I did go in, I think it was 2014, it's either 2014 or 2015, the CAC games.
Hmm.
I was selected to go with a CAC team that year. That's when it was in
That's a
Costa
junior
Rica.
team,
I think
a
it was Costa
junior.
Rica.
Okay,
No, senior CAC team.
senior. Okay, okay,
But it was
okay.
a small team, and it was like those athletes who did not make it to the World
To
Championships.
the bigger championships, yeah.
Yeah, they ran there, and some of them who were trying to get a qualifying time in order to qualify to go would
But
go. So
you're
it wasn't like an A string team. But what's interesting that we had some athletes on that team then who are doing great professionally now. And at the time, I think it was Shanika Williams at the time, who is now Ricketts or
Ricketts,
triple
yes.
jumper.
Hmm. Hmm.
She was on that team, and her husband was actually just was a massage therapist at the time. He was also with us on that team, and he was a massage therapist slash coach, her coach. So we've had some really good people that we've worked with then, and I always look forward to opportunities to serve my country. But you know,
Do you think some of our athletes who have retired and now doing great things, because I call it great things, coaching, you as a doctor, therapist, whatever area, do you think that our retired athletes in the business are overlooked?
um, okay. So here is something that you have to consider. In order to qualify to vote for our association's president or the elected officials for the association, you have to either be a national representative as an athlete, or
Wow.
I think you should still be hearing me, right?
Yes, I'm hearing you, but I'm not seeing you right.
Yeah. Let
Hmm.
me see if I can switch to my
Okay,
um
because I would really love to hear that thought before we wrap up. We're
here the
actually at the
setting.
end, but I would love to hear that thought
I'm
before
gonna
we.
switch to my camera on my laptop.
Okay, great. So while you do that, okay, here you are. You are back. Super. Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry it's
Back
not
to
as
that
pretty.
thought.
All right. Sorry it's not as pretty as the other one.
No, it's fine. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's clear.
Good. All right. So um what was I talking about again?
In order to vote for a
Voting
president,
rights.
right?
Yes. So you have to be either a representative as an athlete, um, or you represent as a coach or an official. What other? Wait, so you either have to have traveled with a national team to a major championships as a coach, an athlete, or an official of some capacity, whether it's team doctor or therapist or whatever. So what ends up happening is, and I'm not saying that this is the reason, but this is a reality that we're faced with.
Mm-hmm.
We have, if those are the criteria upon which people are selected to or allowed to have a say in who is the next president, then why would you select an athlete who, because they're an athlete, they are not very likely to vote for you, especially if you were an administrator during the time of their athletics and they would have seen the nonsense that you went on with? Not to say that this is speaking of the current administration, right? Just
Yeah, in
generally.
general, yes.
So if it is that they already have voting rights because by virtue of being an athlete, why would you select them to travel with the team when you can select new faces and new people to give them voting rights who are loyal to you?
Ooh. Ooh.
I'm not
I,
saying that this is what happens, right?
I know, right?
But
I know.
if I were unscrupulous and I had the power, why would I not do that? Why am I going to bother trying to get more athletes to travel with the team, take up more of the spaces that I could have put a couple of my friends who, couple of the, like I might have business friends, businessmen friends, or business women friends, or whatever. People who love track and field, or people who don't know anything about track and field, because I had an objection once where there was a medical person that came with the team that knows nothing about track and field. Nothing. And somebody got injured and they didn't know where the 200-meter start was because they don't know anything about track and field. I said, it's the 200-meter start. Where is that? You know what I mean? So this happens. And I raised the concern before in our meetings, in our annual or AGMs, annual general meetings. And the persons who were in charge were saying that it doesn't matter if they know nothing about track and field. All that matters is their clinical knowledge. And I would dare say that unless it is that the only benefit that the person will have is to prescribe medication, then it really doesn't matter what they know for true. I
Then
agree.
train them. Okay.
You understand?
Have a system where people go through different training, because I mean, you cannot just be a doctor with the team and
Know
you
nothing
don't
about the
know
event, the
anything
sport.
about the sport or whatever. Just like you cannot have a president of a sporting discipline that knows absolutely nothing
About the
about
discipline.
the discipline. So when you're talking about a sport, and I've seen this before, where president of association, the J3 is talking about a race, and he was not able to use time. He was not able to say, okay, this athlete is running 10.5 or 10.2 or whatever. He wasn't able to use data. So if you do not know the jargons of the sport, how are you? It's like you're giving a plumber a financial controller job.
Well, let me try to defend them a little teeny bit, right?
You have to know something. I'm sorry.
I agree. I think you are at a distinct advantage if you know the event or you know the sport, but you have to be willing to learn. Irrespective of where you are at the beginning,
I agree.
you have to be willing and able to learn and become familiar with the sport or the discipline that you're in charge of. You have
I
to.
totally
There's
agree.
no way
Totally
around it.
agree. Totally agree.
There's no way around it. So I don't know. I know it was a very strong response against me, and I suppose they would remember that.
Yeah,
Why I didn't go with another team.
as the people are saying in the comment section, you're being very diplomatic, and I see that, and I respect that and everything, but I am a track and field fan. I'm a Jamaican. I'm a track and field fan, and I want to see the sport do better. I want to see a lot of the conflict of interest, clashes, nepotism, those things.
going
I would
away.
love to see those things on the sideline. And Dr. Neil, I'm not saying you cannot offer your friend a job, but you have to ensure that your friend is doing that job. And even if your friend comes in with a degree, but they don't know anything about journalism, you must be able to learn. If you're not able to, if you do not want to learn about the portfolio that you're taking up, then it is a threat to the organization.
100%. I think a low hanging fruit for the current administration would be training for all officials going with any team. I don't think, I honestly have a problem with the same people going with every team. I have a big problem with that. I don't see how you have the same person being chief track judge or chief technical director or whatever. Is it that nobody else has any ability to do that role?
Dr. Neil, you're drawing me out now. You're drawing me out now.
No,
I
I'm
totally
friends with
agree.
huh?
I totally agree with you. We have the same people going as this for years and years. You're telling me that we don't have anybody as this. We have so many great coaches, and I'm going to call some of them name. We have some great former athlete coaches. Daniel England is one. Davian Clark is one. Lasina Golden Clark is one. Ines Turner is
Without a
one.
doubt.
Karen Stewart is another
Without a
one.
doubt.
Aileen Bailey, Isa Phillips, and I can keep going.
Without a doubt. And let me tell you something. I was coached by Bert Cameron for part of my career leading up to the 2004 Olympics or Olympic trials, right? And what Bert brings to the table is his personal experience. And when I'm training and I'm tired, and Bert look in my eye and see me a vomit and thing, and it don't phase him, and he can say to me, look here, I got through this. You can go through it too. Get up. It says something to me when I'm on my back and I look up at him and I remember when he pulled up in that 84 Olympics. What am I going to do? Say,
And he kept going.
what am I going to do? Say, boy, you know what? No, I can't do it. No, I have to get up and do it. You understand? So there is value to having somebody who went before as an athlete being involved in the administration of our current athletes. And currently, it is grossly lacking. Grossly lacking. We have too many athletes who are coaches to
Too
not
many.
have some of them be a part of our coaching team. Why are we only using local coaches and the same handful of coaches
Every year, every
every year?
season, the same
So
thing.
I don't understand that I don't quite get because it smacks in the face of nepotism and
Mhm.
lack of creativity, really. But the question is why? I mean, if I tell you where my office is, you'll probably laugh. But why is it that I'm an Olympian? I'm also a physician, chiropractic physician, not medical physician. I work with athletes of every single level, from primary school, prep school, high school, college, professional. I've had at least 6 gold medals in the Olympics in terms of people I've worked with, probably more, right? And these are people who are faithful people they have a problem, they come to me. When they come back from Europe, they come to me. When they're going to Europe, they come to me. If they have a big race, they come to me, right? These are people I work with on a day in, day out basis. I have their strictest confidence. I don't advertise any athlete on any website or anything to promote my business. chiropractor that they used to carry was a person from Florida who uses the athletes to promote his chiropractic practice in Florida. He puts them on his website, he puts them on his business information, and he advertises himself as a chiropractor to the Jamaican team. When I was coming back home, the president of the International Sports Chiropractic Association, let me say that one more time. The president of the International Sports Chiropractic Association is somebody who was partly responsible for me getting the scholarship, because it was through the World Federation of Chiropractic and the World Olympians Association. So they came together to make the scholarship. So I met some of these people. And he says to me, when I was coming back home, he said, you make sure you go to the J3s and tell them that you are to be the chief chiropractor for the national team. Because he said, because, and he called the name of the person and said, such and such cannot hold a light to you. You are far superior than he is. So you make sure you go there and you tell them. So I came home and I had a meeting with the former president, who's now passed. And I said to him, what do I need to do to be the national chiropractor the chiropractor for the national team? And his response was this: there is no such position as a national chiropractor or the chiropractor for the national team as a position, because there's no such position. Later on that same year, that same chiropractor, I saw in a newspaper where he was receiving an award from the minister Babsy Grange, and the award said, to the national chiropractor for the Jamaican Olympic team.
Woo!
This white brother,
Woo!
who uses our athletes as
To
promotion
promote.
for his business. And they have, did I
And
mention I
we
was
have
valedictorian of my class?
our own.
do,
Our
do
own.
you know where my office is? 8 Tremaine Road. Do you know the address for J3 is? 6 Tremaine Road.
Wow.
My office is right next door.
Wowie.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, it kind of bewilders me. And I don't want to sound, I'm annoyed. I'm
You
not,
should be. You should
this
be,
is not my
because I
business.
am annoyed
Let me tell you
too.
this. Let me tell you this. If I were to go to the Olympics, I would lose a lot of money. I will not make money by going to the Olympics, because I have to close my office. So I will lose money, and they cannot recoup me for the money I'm going to lose. So my wanting to do this is not about self-gain or self-promotion.
It's for the
I
love of the sport and
Not just the
country.
love of the sport, but for the love of the athletes. Many
Yes.
of them I
Yes.
already treat. And I believe I have some significant things that I can offer beyond just the clinical side of things.
Yep. You've been there, you've done it. Our athletes need to. I This is something I admire about America. America use their retired
Yeah, man.
athletes
Use them up.
they use them up to, and they mix them with their current athletes.
Yep.
When you look at a championship, I was in Eugene last year for the World Championship, and the amount of American retired athletes with their accreditation just moving around the stadium, talking to athletes. When you look, people like Gail Divas, the athlete, what's her name? Is it Jackie? Is it
Jackie
Jackie
Joyner
Craig?
Kersey.
Yes, so many of them, David Oliver, so many retired athletes, Maurice Green and I were on the same flight. They are very much involved in track and field USA, or USA track and field.
I'll go a step further. So there are some years that they didn't have a chiropractor travel with some of the teams. I'm not even just talking about the Olympic team. You have other teams that travel as well, and they didn't have chiropractors. Like Carifto, they don't have any chiropractor traveling with Carifto. They don't have chiropractors traveling with most of the teams, but they had this one person that has been traveling with the team since 2000, since 1996 when I was there. That same person was the chiropractor that traveled with the Olympic team when I was there. And what I was told once, I don't know if it's true, is that he he does we don't have to pay him. He comes on his own dime. I was like, really? It's called the cost of doing business. He comes
Wow.
and uses us for his promotions. When I went on his website, I see him stretching Usain Bolt, I see him stretching Johan Blake, I see him stretching all these athletes. I'm like, does he have the permission from these athletes to be doing this? Does he have the permission from the association to use the images of Jamaica on his website? And I bet the answer is no. So I feel bad. I don't feel slighted. I just feel like Jamaica has been slighted because
Yes.
some of the injuries that I've seen athletes have are things that I've worked with and been able to address in a very short period of time.
Wow.
And it's not that I can't fix everything,
Yes.
and I don't want to make it sound like I'm a miracle worker. I am not a miracle worker. They just seem to follow me, right?
It it is just we need to start getting it right, and I would love to see that. We need to start leading, we need to start managing, we need to start look like a business, we're running a business. But in closing, someone was asking on the live, asking you to explain some choices for the female sprint relay team.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, they asked me to ask you that, to
So
name some
for which,
choices for the women sprint relay
you
team.
mean the one that just went by?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
If they want to know if I would have put
How would
Elaine
you
on
have
the third
set
leg,
up how would you have set up that 4x1 team for the women
same
in the
way,
final?
same way,
The same way how it's set up?
same way. Now,
Why would you take out Elaine off the
because
back?
Elaine wasn't in the top four.
No, but
No, hold on, no, hold on, 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 hold on,
sure.
hold
Sure.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Who are you gonna replace Elaine with?
No, what I'm saying, all right, this
Or
is how I would have
now, who are
set
you
up.
gonna replace with Elaine? Who would Elaine replace?
I would not, because of Shelley's injuries, I
No,
would
but we
not.
didn't know of Shelly. You
No,
see,
but no,
Shelly,
but Shelly was injured. Shelly,
yeah,
in every interview, Shelly said, "My knee, my knee, my knee," and I'm
yes,
just going through. So I would not have put Shelly in both rounds of the relay, and in the final, Shelly would have been my anchor. And I'm just looking at the ladies, where their strength lies and their fitness level, and so I'm looking at
right.
different variables.
So you'd have said put Elaine instead of Shelly.
I would have put Elaine on the back, to Sharika, to Shelly, and to Anka. So we could have used any of the other three ladies to start. Natasha, Brianna, or Sasha Lee could have started. To Elaine, to Sharika,
The
to
only reason
Shelly.
we're having this discussion, the only reason we're having this discussion is
Because
because
we
Shelly
didn't
pulled
win the
up.
gold?
It's because Shelly pulled up.
No, no. We were having the discussion in a watch
Yeah.
party
Do you know
even
how far
before
ahead
the
we were?
final.
Hold on, hold on. Do you remember how far ahead we were before she pulled up?
I know. I watched the
We would
race.
have won. We would have broken the world record.
No, but what I'm saying, you have to look at the
Wrap your
strength.
mind around that. Hold on. The team as it was had Shelly not pulled up, and nobody knew she was going to pull up. She didn't know she was going to pull up.
No, but the possibility exists because she
Now the
was not
possibility
100. She
always
was no, she wasn't 100%. And if an athlete is not 100% going into a race, the possibility exists that they will get hurt.
question. Was Elaine 100%?
No,
No.
Elaine wasn't 100% before the championship, but Elaine peaked at the championship.
No,
That's
she
the
peaked
difference.
after. She peaked at the Diamond League
No,
final.
but remember, Elaine peaked every race Elaine ran this season,
Yes,
she ran a faster time. So
right.
she peak as
But
she
hold
go
on.
along.
But remember too that after the after the World Championships was over, her first race was an 11-second race.
After the World Championship?
Was it not?
No, no.
What,
Every race she
10:90 what?
ran,
She
every
ran she
she
ran
ran
she
ten
ran a
nine, then
10:92,
10:8, then
then
10:7.
10:85 I
10:8.
think,
Yes.
then 10:70
She
what?
run faster every
9,
time. Yeah, then
10:79.
yeah, she closed out with
And
10:7.
when that 10:79 was at the end of the season, I think about a month after the World Championships
Yeah, but if we
was.
look at her
So you can't use that.
progression,
Don't
if
use that.
we
Don't use that.
no, no, no,
You have
no,
to
but
say on the
Doc,
day.
Doc, if we look at Elaine progression throughout the season, Elaine run her first 100 meters. Elaine progress. She run faster. She run a season best. Every time she run a season best. She started her season with I think 11:24 at JC. She came to the trials and every round she ran at the trials, she ran a faster time.
Right,
The three Diamond League race that she ran in, she season best every time.
right. So
So
what does that tell you?
she peaks
After the
as
trial,
the season
after the game.
progresses.
Yes, after the game.
After, not
So we can't use what happened at the end to say that she should have been put forward here. I have no okay. If they had let Elaine run and in the order that you suggested and removed one of the girls, either Sasha Lee or one of the other girls that ran, um, what I would have said to that is it's possible that on the day in the village where they were training, they saw something that suggested that she's the best person, right? I didn't, but I'm far away. So from what I knew, the top four people are the top four that ran. From what I knew, from my vantage point.
yeah, but top
No,
four doesn't necessarily mean that's the best fit. And we've seen, and this
I
is
know,
where
I
America
know,
defeat us
I
every
know,
time because
I know.
America doesn't use top four.
No, they don't.
America don't use top four for neither their four by
Yeah, but
four
here's the
or
difference.
their 4x1.
Here's the difference. Um, America brings all their athletes together for a training camp a few times during the year for a relay training camp. So they already know of the pool of persons that they're going to be working with, the possibilities, the ones who are likely to make the team. They know who the people are, so they work out already the possible combinations depending on who makes the team. And then when the team is made, they fine tune it even more. So they have that ability. We don't do that, but it's something that we probably should do. It's something that we probably should do because we've
Gardner,
had the best team on paper since 2008. Well, since 2004, but we won in 2004. I think we won again in 2007, but we failed in 2008. We won in 2009, I think.
yes,
We failed in 2011. We failed in 2012
we
when they
won
broke the world record.
2013. Yeah,
We won in 2013,
yes,
but I think that was the last time we won.
and
Or might no, no, we won again after that because I think
yeah
we won
we
in
won in
21.
Tokyo. We
We
won
won.
Tokyo.
We won in Tokyo.
20,
We, no,
yeah, we won Tokyo 2020. The Olympics 2021. Yeah, we won. We won with Brianna
2022. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. This is
2021. Yeah,
2022. Sorry, sorry. Yes, 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 yes.
yeah,
We forgot that it was 23 this year and 22 last year. They won again.
yeah.
Yeah, we won in 2021 for Tokyo. Um, we've had far superior. No American team has been within a second of our cumulative PRs. Cumulatively, within a second, and they have been able to beat us in the last two big championships, and they beat us again in 2012 when they broke the world record. And this was, I mean, it was a big upset and a massive beating, massive beating. So it is what it is. We should have more training camps.
Yeah, I think so. Verna is a little upset with me. Verna Comrie. She said, "Presenter, you ask a question. Let the doc answer." I'm very sorry, doc, but I
Nah,
tend
man,
to
you're good,
get,
man.
I,
Remember, saying we're Jamaican,
yeah, I tend to get very
What
passionate
was good?
about, yeah,
Yeah, because remember, saying we're Jamaican, and it's so we're talking Jamaica,
yes, yeah, yeah,
If you're a point strong and the next man point
yeah,
weak,
yeah,
you gotta jump on top of him.
yes, yes. Because let me
Where
tell
I
you,
go with that? No, don't come here with that.
yeah, you see, like how you said you're annoyed earlier. This is
Uh-huh.
how I am annoyed
Yeah,
about us losing those relays.
I was
Yeah,
annoyed that we lost 100 meters.
yeah, yeah. I'm a little
That
annoyed,
one
but
that one annoyed me more than the relay.
what the 100, well, the 100 meter, it didn't surprise me and it didn't annoy me
It
because
didn't surprise you because it didn't know what Sharika should have done in that 100.
no, why it didn't surprise me when you have three women dominating the season, beating each other and the times that they're running. I predicted a former athlete asked me at the beginning of the women's 100, who is your podium pick? And my podium pick was the three that went on the podium with Talu maybe spoiling it for somebody. But the order, that was not the order. But you know something? Competition is about on the day in that race.
Right.
It's not how
It's
you
not even
come
about
in.
who's the fastest. It's who just
No.
pass the line first.
There you go. There you
Because
go.
what annoyed me when I looked at that race and I look back at the trials and how Sharika ran at the trials and how she ran in the final, the only conclusion that I could come to is why was Sharika waiting with um Shellyan? Why didn't she just blow her out? And it's
Was
I think
she
it was just
really was she really waiting?
so after she passed, okay, remember that Sharika's best part of the race is her second half of the race. Did she run away from Shellyan? No. Whatever distance she got ahead of her when she got tall, she just stayed there. What time did she run? Faster than she did at trials? Slower than she did at trials? Same as she did at trials? Much slower.
Slower.
Yeah. 10:65, which is the time she ran at trials, under better conditions here in the in the World Championship final, when she's fresh and she's more peaked or more precisely tuned. Remember, at the trials she ran 21:70 something, and here she ran 21:41 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Almost run 21:3. So that means she is faster at the games, having run more races than she was at trials. How is it that she ran half a tenth slower in the championships, in the 100 meters, without an obvious mishap? When she got ahead of Shellyan, my opinion or my feeling on it is she decided that, you know what? Shellyan is the only person that going to beat me in this race. If I'm ahead of Shellyan, I'm winning the race.
Underestimating
Underestimate that girl
others.
in lane 9. And had that girl been in, she's a girl, right? Had that
Yes.
girl been,
Doc, you know you're a troublemaker. I swear. I
uh,
swear.
had that girl been in the lane beside her, or if they were all together, it would
You
have been
think
a
it would
different
have been
race.
different?
Yeah,
You
it would
think
have been a
so?
different race. 100%. Yes. 100. Training cycles is why Sharika was losing to her. Just training cycle. Remember, Sharika at the time was also running 22 flat. Sharika was ready to run 21. Sharika was ready to run 10:5. She ran 10:65 at the trials. She was ready to run 10:5 at the games, at the World Championships. And had she run the race fully, she didn't run the second half. Look back at the race and tell me what you think.
Yeah, I know. She didn't run the
She didn't run
last
the
part
second
of
half
the
of the
race.
race.
No, mm-mm, no, she
And
did
when she
not.
looked across and saw it was too late. She can't kick again.
Yeah,
What are you going
yeah,
to do?
yeah. With that said, Dr. Neil Gardner, it was I learned a lot tonight. I learned a lot tonight. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule for being
Yes.
here and sharing your story and sharing what you do, and keep doing, just keep pushing, keep doing a good job for our country, our athletes, and our elderly. You know, keep doing that. And I'm going to give you the last words.
Well, thank you for giving us athletes an opportunity like this to just kind of reminisce and to touch base with some of our former friends, well, some of our longtime friends, I should say. You know, it is a pleasure getting to walk down memory lane, to talk track and field, and to talk about things that we would love to see happen in our sport. I think we are still on the cusp of greatness. I don't think that this is the best that we have seen of us. And if you realize how well Jamaica did as a team this last World Championships, this is the our best performance by far. We've had the most athletes in finals and the most multiple athletes in finals of any World Championships that we've ever had. And so, I mean, the 2, 3, 4 finish in the long jump was especially spectacular for me.
Brilliant, brilliant.
So I love track and field. I don't eat, sleep, and breathe it as some persons do. I have other things I have to breathe with, but I love track and field, and I want to see the best for our sport. And I do want to see where our administrators and the athletes, whatever historically has been the thing that divided us, that we get over that because it will benefit our future athletes more.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Neil Gardner. Thank you very much. Outstanding
Thank you.
Olympian for Jamaica. Thank you very much, sir, for being here.
Okay, have a wonderful day and night or morning whenever you should watch us.
You have a good night yourself. Thank you.
All right, bye bye now.
Bye. Thank you guys very much for being here. Another electrifying discussion, of course, with Dr. Neil Gardner, sharing some of his expertise with us, telling us his story from a little boy until, he retired. Thank you guys for being here, everyone, wherever in the world you are. Thanks for spending 2.5 hours with us. I really could not cut this discussion tonight because it was very, very informative. Thank you all for being here. Verna Comrie, thanks for being here. Sandy British, Dorothy, Auntie Dorothy Genius, Auntie Scott, Dorothy Scott Genius, thank you for being here. Another Olympian. Distance running, thank you for being here. David was here earlier. Sandy, everyone who were here. Daniel England, Davian Clark, thank you all. Sharon Bailey. If you don't hear your name, please don't feel anyways. Just that I cannot remember all the names. Marlene Green, Kino was here. Thank you guys very much for the love. Thank you for being here. And join me next week for another exciting discussion. I won't tell you who it will be. Just stay tuned and you will see. Thank you guys. Have a good night, a good morning, a good evening, wherever in the world you are. Thank you for being here. And remember to subscribe, guys. Please subscribe and share the discussions. I want people to know about the athletes, where they are, what they're doing now. We have to, and as Dr. Neil just said, memory, it is just reminiscing, going down memory lane and sharing. So thank you guys. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a good one. One Jamaica, one people, one legacy. Thank you very much.